Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. Who is the awakening woman? She's a woman who's seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her conversations will introduce you to talented women who speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. They share their stories and explain how they are in service to the world. So let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's Her Conversations is Tantric Healer, energy alignment coach and speaker Kerry O'Sullivan. Using these healing modalities, she guides clients to release traumatic blocks and reconnect with their sexual energy. During our conversation, we both share our own personal experiences around sexual abuse. Kerry defines Tantra and tells how it facilitated her healing, and she speaks about the changes she would like to see in sex education for children and what she believes is the best age to start. But as always, I begin by asking my guests. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel at your most her?
It's when I'm like truly connected to me, when I'm in that place where I'm able to accept all of me, and that's the me that's quite vulnerable or the me that's kind of hyperactive, whatever that side is. But it's when I'm truly connected and I've got that awareness of myself, because when you get busy, you can kind of forget about that awareness. And I think when I'm really there and I'm really in my power, that's when I've got true awareness, and I'm also able to kind of ride with whatever that is, you know, whether it's a kind of a big storm or whether it's kind of a calm ocean. I'm kind of there anyway, and I'm truly connected to her.
Good answer. Thank you. Just want to know more about you. So how did you actually get into the work that you're doing now?
So I used to work in media. I used to be account director in media, and I worked in media for 15 years. And it was getting to, I'd just gone back after maternity leave, after having my little one, and things just never felt the same, because I was now a mum and I was still trying to kind of fly by the seat of my pants, work all the hours, but it just wasn't sitting right anymore. And I had a couple of friends pass away really suddenly, and one of my best friends had just been diagnosed with cancer. And I remember just thinking, you know, I don't know what card I'm going to be dealt tomorrow, you know, what is next for me. And I always had this kind of inner sense that I was destined for more, something more. And so I just decided one day that just there was more stuff coming in, more work. It was always so manic. And I decided one day, like, I don't need to do this anymore. Like, you know what, I've got some money in the bank, because I've never had the time to spend my money because I was always working. And I know I'm destined for more. I know there's something else. So I'm just going to hand my notice in. And I had 3 months' notice. Everyone thought I was going absolutely crazy. They're like, what are you doing? I had a really good salary, a good job. My other half was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I know there's more for me out there, you know. And he was like, what are you talking about? And so I gave up my job. And then for the first month, I kind of went a little bit crazy, because I've gone from like being completely like managing a team, having really high-end big FMCG clients that were constantly on my case, to all of a sudden just having like silence. And I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I like this, you know, I need to get back to work. And but I knew that was a kind of fear response, so I just had to sort of stay with it. And then I started doing meditation. I signed up to a meditation course, and that was when it all kind of started. Some like crazy stuff started, because I just started having wild like thoughts and dreams and all these things happening, because my mind for the first time in my life had actually just stopped. And it hadn't ever stopped, actually, because I'd always just kept myself so busy. And then as a result of that, I kind of like I was kind of dabbling in self-development, seeing different things out there, and I thought, oh, I've never really ever done anything like this, like for myself ever. I'd never invested in me. I'd invested in courses to train up as a reflexologist and things like that, but I'd never actually invested in my personal development. it was always about how I could give back to others. So this course like came along, energy alignment method, and I thought, oh, it sounds all right. Maybe I'll just sign up for it, see how I get on, thinking it would be like a breeze, like, you know, like reading a self-help book. I'd be fine, just another course sort of thing. Oh no, little do I know, it was an absolute whirlwind, because it was a real deep dive into your subconscious. And underneath all of the craziness and all of the silence, I realised deep down I never loved myself, and I was always doing all these different things to try and compensate or to try and make myself feel better. And then as time went on, this is like a very short version, but as time went on, I then started to get memories of my past. So when I was growing up, I experienced some sexual trauma growing up. And this was only sort of, I was 37, and it happened from the age of 5 and upwards. And I just basically started to get the memories of all of that came back. And it wasn't all the time. It happened all throughout my childhood or anything. It was like different instances that happened throughout my childhood that I just completely squashed down. And I was raped when I was 17, and again that was something else that I'd never told anyone about, and it all came up because my mind stopped, and it was like right, now it's time for her to deal with this stuff. And you know, it was a real shock actually, because I was like, at first I was like, is this actually true? Like, how can all this stuff be coming up? And so I went through that big whirlwind of like, is this actually true, or am I making this stuff up? You know, but then obviously I had to just process it and work through it all. And then, yeah, that's kind of how I got to then training as a tantric practitioner, because of the sexual trauma side. Someone suggested that you should train as a tantric, or you should go for a tantric massage, because to help kind of heal the body. And I was like, oh, what's that then? And I was a bit intrigued by it, and I went for this massage and was totally blown away. And as a result of that, I then trained in Tantra. And I also became an energy alignment method mentor on the back of all of that. So those two things have totally transformed my life. And so now I'm now helping others transform their lives with the tools that help me. You know, it can't get any better than of having to have gone, no, I've gone through all of that myself, and now I can help others in the same way. And it just, yeah, it's just crazy, because I go back to like my old, I went out of my old work guys last year, and they were like, are you doing something to do with sex now? Like, how have you gone from media to sex? And I was like, it's a bit of a story, take a seat and I'll just get a drink. Because I'd never have dreamt when I left my job that I would have gone on this journey that I've been on, because I had no clue.
Yeah.
You know, so now to be doing what I'm doing, it's just crazy. Yeah.
Did you ever have the connotation, you know, because Sting had made that comment like years back about Tantra? Did you have that connection? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. For me, like I just thought Tantra is just sex, and I just thought, oh, what's that got to do with anything? And then I did loads of research around, you know, using Tantra as a healing modality, and that it was about awakening and kind of using the sexual energy, but through that to heal your body. And I just thought, everything I read, I was like, I need to do. I just knew, you know, I got a gut instinct that I needed to try this. And the tantric experience I had was with a man, and that was another huge thing for me, because it was men where I'd been, you know, abused by and kind of felt powerless with men generally in life. And so to then I went and had an experience, and it was amazing. And that was I've had many experiences since then, but that was obviously my first one. And I was just like, wow, you know, how can I be like, it was almost like I was having photographic images leaving my memory as I was being pleasured, in a sense. I was being massaged, but in a way that where you're using your breath to kind of move the energy around your body. It's a totally different thing to what I've ever experienced in anything before. And I've had loads of treatments, like loads of different things over the years. And this was just something just so different. But in terms of the whole, you know, this is something that I'm working on now, and something I'm going to start writing about a lot, because I know that people just have this, idea that Tantra is just like happy ending or whatever.
A sex marathon. Because I was just going to say, because it was, and I know it's not that, even though I don't have an in-depth knowledge of it, and you know how the media will take one thing and turn it into something salacious, you know, and so everyone's got this kind of like snigger and kind of wink wink nudge nudge thing about the whole tantra thing. And it's, why do you think, you know, having gone through that experience, having found a community where you're safe enough to experience tantra, what have you discerned about the reason why our sexuality is so repressed, and then so, like, we've pretty much all got this kind of real childish view about sex, even as adults? There's still this kind of like, you know, like kind of like this real juvenile approach to it. But like you say, when you do actually really experience the power of sexual energy, it's actually very creative and it's very potent. And if you start to understand how to direct it, you realize how you know, it's like, it is like electricity running through your body.
It completely sets you free. And I mean, I mean, for me, I think it's a British culture thing in terms of Britain as a culture, because there's obviously other cultures that are quite open to sexuality, like Scandinavian countries, a bit more open and things like that. But as a British culture, it tends to be one of those things they just don't talk about. And, you know, religion comes into that and different aspects of that. And I get a lot of people who come to me that have had very quite strict religious kind of upbringings, and but it's not necessarily religion, but it's also just the way their parents have brought them up and the way their parents have brought them up, and it's kind of a generational pattern that just feeds through the generations. And a lot of the time, you know, the things your parents might have taught you might not even be what they really truly believe. It's just all they knew, you know, so it just carries on and carries on. But the thing is that when you actually get people to talk about it and actually give them the space, people love talking about sex. But it's almost just giving them that permission, because it's something that they don't tend to even express. But there's so many people that are in relationships that are not happy around, you know, because they don't feel like they can say what they truly want or desire in their relationship, but because of their conditions, the conditioning that they're under. But when you actually give them that space, and then you say, well, actually, you can talk about this stuff, and what if you said that I'd actually prefer this to this, and what if you said, oh, could I explore my sexuality in this way? And then everyone's like, wow, like, really? Can we really do that? And I'm like, yeah, you know. And that's where the transformation happens, because we have to kind of, anyone that's in this kind of light workers, you know, transformational plays, we have, like, that's part of my mission, is to make Tantra, make sexuality not a massive taboo subject, because I know that from the clients that I work with, and from the people, when I do a Facebook post, for instance, you know, I did a Facebook post, I think it was about a month ago now, and it was about kink, and it was about my kink workshop and what I got up to at this kink workshop, which I'd never done before, but I wrote quite, you know, honestly, like I do. And I probably had about 5 likes of the actual post, but in the stats, over 500 people had read it. But that just reflects culture, you know. People, they want to know, but they won't admit it. Yeah. And I had a few PMs of people saying, you know, I couldn't say this on the post, but this is what I think about this, this, and this. And they wanted to know more. They wanted to know details. And I'm like, come on, write it on the post. Because I think it's just people are just so scared to step out of what they've always done or known, you know.
Yeah. What do you think it is that they're afraid of? Is it like what other people are going to say, or what they're going to discuss? Yeah. I mean, and then when you get to the point when you realise that, who cares? you know, but
that's obviously where I'm at, you know. And I still get, like, my family recently, when I did the kink post, we were saying, like, I don't think you should be discussing that stuff in public, that's all private, blah blah blah. And I went, well, don't read it then. I said, like, you know, the first line of the post was, you know, I went to this kink workshop, I had the most mind-blowing experience, blah blah blah. If you didn't want to read it, then you didn't have to read it, you know. So it's one of those things.
I'm going to read the whole thing and then go. I'm disgusted and annoyed by that. It's like you gave them an out from the start.
Yeah, Exactly. And one thing that made me laugh today is I did a post today just about being seen, but the picture I'd used, I almost look like I'm naked, but I've got like a boob tube on, but it looks like I'm naked. And I posted it on LinkedIn, an abbreviated version on LinkedIn, just about, are you trying to be seen? Are you in the rat race? Blah, blah, blah. And loads of people have looked at it, but no one's commented. And someone that looked at it I knew, and so I messaged her and said, I noticed you looked at my my blog, and she said, yeah, I had to have a look when I saw that. And I said, oh yeah, she's like, things have changed for you, blah blah blah. But I thought, I'm even putting stuff on LinkedIn around this area, and I put a post on LinkedIn a while ago about self-pleasure, and I thought, well, people are reading LinkedIn, but they're still kind of like my target market. There's still people that want to know about sex, and they do, like, just from the stats. So I want to be there everywhere. And then, I'm hoping eventually sex will start to become a normal thing, because it's like eating and drinking. We do it. Everyone does it. Whether they do it on their own or whether they do it with a partner. Why can't we talk about it?
It's nuts, isn't it? That it's become so taboo. Well, it is so taboo, and it has been for so long. But then when you think about it, that it's created there's been so much secrecy and shame and personal ignorance about it, what it means to fully be sexual, that you've got permission to, what kind of life you can lead if you walk around in that kind of energy. And this is something I'm personally discovering as well. I'm by no means fully tantraed out of it, but I've had a friend that I used to work with, and she used to go away to like Europe and like come back and tell me about these like amazing things. She's like, this is what I did this weekend. I've gone around and this tantra. And I'm like, she was fairly open-minded, so it wasn't like beyond the realms of her, but she just really kept it on the down low, because it wasn't something that we could talk about openly, because a lot of people just wouldn't get it or would be so closed into it. And especially with what's been happening, say, over the last 2 years, with like women coming out and speaking about their experience, their sexual experiences, and men too as well, starting to like hold up and talk about what they've experienced. And then also now larger figureheads, kind of people in positions of power who are continuously now being exposed for their out of order behavior. And do you think it's because things became so secretive and shame cloaked that then it became used as an abusive thing? Because at the end of the day, if you get it right, it's creative, but yet we're using this creative energy or this creative situation to be quite abusive. And so many people, it's like the stats, isn't it, like the stats are like, you could say it's like 25 to 30% of people that have been through some sort of sexual trauma, probably even higher, right?
I'll say higher, because I think a lot of the time, and even me included, you never realised at the time that was trauma, or that was inappropriate. It was just all you knew. And as you got older and you've gone through different types of relationships, you realise and gone, oh, that wasn't right, and when I speak about things and when I'm speaking gigs and stuff, that's when people are like, oh, I never realised, and now I do. Like, it's almost like I only realise it now, when when someone else speaks about their experience, that they may have been through similar. So yeah, it's definitely a movement, and I think the Me Too thing has helped people understand it a bit more and actually admit that they have been through things, which is a good thing, to be able to then obviously go on and clear it, really. So
how did you begin to like you said, it wasn't until you were still that you started to have recollections of situations that had happened previous, to the point that it was you didn't even recognize it as your own memories, like your like instances that had totally happened to you? How did you then start to face them and heal through them? And then also, did you choose to go and kind of take any action against the person who had committed this against you?
Yeah, so the first part is, so when it came to the actual things that were coming up, because of the work that I do, the energy work that I do, it isn't about going through the detail of what happened, what the details were. When it's about, well, how does that feel in your body right now? How does that feel? What's coming up for you? And it was things like, I'm embarrassed, I'm disgusted with myself, I hate myself because I allowed it, I hate myself because I never told anyone. So all those thoughts and beliefs that I had about myself, I then cleared those, as opposed to going in having to talk about it. I did, with the energy alignment method, we don't talk about it, we just talk about, well, what is happening now when you think about that. And then using Tantra, I didn't, I'm part of kind of a Tantra school, and so quite often I go along and I give my body for the practice, in effect. So people use my body to practice on. And so a lot of my trauma was released in those situations, and there's no warning. There's no kind of, oh, it's going to happen to you today. It's just whatever your body decides to do. So the more I've gone on, and November last year was when I released a lot around my rape, and I thought that I'd already released a lot of that already. And then when I was having a yoni massage, it then literally during it, I was just talking and I was sort of helping the person, going, this is what you've got to do, this or this, and being quite kind of teacher mode, in effect. And then when afterwards, that's when everything kind of rose and my whole body went into trauma release. So it's like, with this type of work, you don't know what's going to come up in any situation. It could be the simplest of things, that someone just touches your face and it triggers something that's in your body. And that's what's so powerful about it. It's not, you don't sort of go along and say, what, today I want to work on this. It's like your body decides what you're going to work on, whatever comes up, sort of thing. So I kind of just went with, because this is all about, the whole energy work was all about awareness and what was coming up in my thoughts, what emotions were coming up. I just looked at, and every day I would check in and to see what happened, really. And then just work on whatever emotions, or what, sometimes it wouldn't even be an emotion, sometimes it would just be, I've got this ball stuck in my throat, or I've got this energy in my stomach that wants to just come out, and I'd release that energy without even knowing what that included, sort of thing. And in terms of the taking action part, you know what, I didn't choose to take any action, and that was something that I know that a lot of people, like my closest people, like, you need to do this and this, and even to this day no one knows who these people were, because I didn't feel like that was something that I wanted to do. And I think, and it's not because I think they're just going to get away with it. I think even the night that I was raped, I don't believe the person that done it was a rapist. I think that it was a situation that got out of control, and it was someone I knew. And I truly don't believe it's something he would have done again. But obviously I don't know that. And it is something that I thought about, whether I should write a letter. Like, I know his whereabouts, and I don't know. It's something that I'm still kind of processing, really, because it's still so raw in some ways, because it's, although I've worked on the emotions and the physical embodiment of it, I've not really thought about the next steps, if any. Because in some ways, yeah, I've healed my trauma, and I don't feel the need to raise it up again, really, all these years later, like 25 years later. It feels, people have moved on. And I think back in the day, when I was a young girl growing up, I think it probably happened a lot, but not necessarily, but out of situation, rather than because these people were rapists or because these people were abusers. I just think it was a lot of stuff. It happened a lot when we were growing up, and I know that me coming out, I've had other people come to me and say, yeah, I remember similar things happening. And I'm not saying that's a right or a wrong thing, that's just my honest opinion on it all.
It's interesting that you say that, because as somebody who's had an experience where I was placed into a foster situation as a child, and it was the man that was there being paid to look after me, who chose to do that, you know. And it was interesting that only recently that in a conversation with my brother, he was saying to me, well, you know, that if you know, one, he needed confirmation that it happened because he had a very vague memory and he wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that was just I found that a difficult situation because of the way that he was asking me to confirm it. And I'd been like, well, you know, I don't know if we handled it in the best way, that kind of conversation anyway, but, you know, we got through that. And then it was, if you then, you know, there's a fund, if you want to, you can still go back and go through the whole thing. And I was just thinking, what's the point, you know, personally, because it's not, it would have affected me in some way. And I don't know, because I haven't gone through any kind of deep therapy yet. And I know there's areas that need to be released on that. That is the right way for me, because I just think there are certain, I think more like you've spoken about it, it's an energetic thing. It's something that can be triggered from just like the gentlest of touches. And I can recall situations where someone has been very innocent around me, like has made an innocent move around me, and I've freaked out. And they've just literally made an innocent, like just put their arm around me and meant no harm about it. And I've just been like, why are they, you know? So I know there's still something there, but I don't personally think for me going down that route of sitting down and like kind of like, you know, trying to drag up statements from like 30 odd years ago when I was a kid. So it's like everything's vague and hazy and everything. I don't
remember the details. I remember points of it, which is obviously the trauma. I released physical trauma that obviously my body wants to release. But if I was going up in a court and someone said, what happened, what time was it, what did you do, I haven't got a clue. I can't remember anything, to be honest, like in terms of the details.
But you just know that something went on, and that and I've had
images and I've released the actual energy basically that has been not serving me. And for me, in terms of my transformation, my development, that's for me is the healing that I've had to do. And I always truly believe that the people that did these things, they'll be going through their own type of healing as well.
You hope so, or there'll be some kind of thing, because one, it's so long ago, and the age he was at the time, I'd be surprised if he's actually still alive. Then also because of his position and his role as a carer, then I would have been there would have been unfortunately of girls, I think that was his preference, that would have gone through that. So, you know, what would it benefit? Because it would just be going down the wrong way and handling things in the wrong way, retribution and financial gain and everything like that.
That's all just too much. That's bad energy in my eyes as well. So it's hard, because obviously there's a lot of people, I've had people messaging me going, who did it? You know, tell me now, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, are you okay? Because I've wrote about this stuff quite openly in my blogs. But not like, oh, are you all right? I hope you did okay. Just like, who is it? Tell me now. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not getting involved in this.
Yeah, because they'll just go down it because they're angry for you and they want to kind of make it some big physical. And that's really not the thing, because then it's just going to create more of a thing around something that's still, like you say, it's like a hazy moment, but it's a real moment, and it's kind of like a vague kind of thing. And also, how you said I don't know if you really went into it about how you felt about whether you had placed yourself in a position of like, was I in the wrong place at the wrong time? Did I create the situation? Am I to blame? You know what I mean? That kind of stuff that goes on.
But unless I could physically recall every single part of the situation, I know that I said no multiple times and it never stopped. I also know there was a lot of alcohol involved. There was, and at the end of the day, I know what it felt in my body, and I know what trauma is, and I know that was trauma. And so whatever way you want to look at it, everyone can have their own opinion, but I know for my own self that I have healed my body through that now. And that's for me is all I'm worried about.
And
I think so, and I say that, and in my mind I'm going, I know what the other people saying, well, what about all the other people they could have raped, or what about all the other people they could still be doing stuff to? But I truly, in my heart, I just know that I'm doing the right thing for my decision. And like you say, I don't want to drag up things that I don't necessarily know the full details of, because it was 25 years ago. You know, it's like, I don't think that's fair either.
No. And then you were talking about when you're having like release of trauma, and energetically it's moving through the body. How do you stay strong to allow it to move through and not start to suppress it with the things that we usually use to suppress, like emotions that come out, like food or shopping or television or more sex even? How do you then know and allow it to kind of move through? Because a lot of the time when it moves through, it doesn't take that long, but it feels so heavy that you think it might kill you, so you're trying to like keep it underneath.
When I first, because I've had lots of different release of trauma through the Tantra that I've experienced, the Tantra massage, and when I first started to experience the trauma release, I used to get kind of proper shaking, almost like a fit. And when I first experienced it, it really panicked me and it really scared me, because I was a bit like, I've never had anything like that before, where my whole body went into kind of like a convulsion. And I used to be just so totally like losing my breath and everything. But in all instances, I've always been in a really held space. And so the teacher or one of the assistants has always come to me and just told me to breathe, and they've kind of touched on my throat chakra and allowed me just to be able to speak out whatever it is that's coming out. And as time's gone on, and when I stopped kind of fighting against that, because at first I was just, because you're feeling the stuff that you felt, so it's quite hard to actually feel it. And so I started to this analogy of because a butterfly has been my symbol for a while now, in terms of just setting myself free. So when I sort of go into that trauma now, I visualize this butterfly sort of flying around in the sky, sort of doing that, and as it rides through my body, I feel that I'm flying and I'm releasing the trauma from my body. And so as time's gone on, I've gone into that state. I've kind of told myself, you're the butterfly, Kerry, and I've gone into breathing and released it. So even though I'm sort of having the trauma release, I'm doing it in a way where I'm not fighting, where I'm kind of feeling free through it.
So it's always happened in a contained space. It's never been, you've not had like moments where it just kind of happens in the middle of the night where you have like an energetic, anything like that. You're always been. That's good.
Yeah, the full releasing's always been there, because I think it's because I felt safe. And a big part of the kind of tantric work that I do is that the people that come to me, and when I've been in a situation, is that you just want to feel safe and held, and that is what allows you to release it, because I've not been able to release it all these years because I've never felt safe. I felt like I was okay to do it. And in these spaces, I'm given the kind of, I'm given the space, and I'm given, like, I know that there's people there to hold my hand, and that allows me to be able to set myself free because of that.
Oh, that's so good. And how, what age, like you work with people now, what age range do you work with? What's the youngest that you've worked with in terms of like handling trauma and actually kind of, let's start with the youngest one. What's the youngest age that you would start with in terms of educating a woman, a young girl, about her sexuality, about her sensuality, to try as best to kind of prevent her going into kind of any kind of, we're going to suffer certain things, but for her to be able to experience her full sexuality like as soon as possible, instead of this kind of repressed thing that we have to fight our way out of.
Yeah, I mean, I've not actually worked with any children or any young adults yet in terms of this area, but I have got a 4-year-old, which sounds like, oh, that's really young, but I've got a 4-year-old that's just discovered her, herself, and that at first for me was quite like, oh wow, because I wasn't far much older than her, sort of thing. So it was like, that was a bit of a process for me, because at first I felt like I was making a big deal out of it, like don't do that. I actually said don't touch yourself there, or because you're going to get sore, or don't let anyone else. I remember kept saying to myself, like, I kept saying, Emily, don't let anyone else touch you in that place apart from your mummy and dad if they're washing you, and that's it, sort of thing. And then I kept thinking, Kerry, you're kind of almost putting too much emphasis on this now, because I was so petrified that something's going to happen to Emily in the same way it's happened to me. And then I sort of told myself, I've got to stop that. I've got to empower her. So now, like, she'll talk to me about, oh, it feels nice when I touch it there, mummy. And I go, oh, yeah, it does, yeah. And to try and empower her to just, it's okay, rather than shut her down. So I suppose I'm starting at the age of 4, really. But, and I do love the idea of actually going into schools and talking to, like, into colleges or something, talking to young girls, just to let them know that it's okay to, say what you want and what you don't want. That's the biggest thing, really, is that if you're not happy in the situation, to say it. Because a lot of the time, I remember so many times where I just laid there, and I wasn't being raped or anything like that, but I just laid there not actually enjoying what was happening, but just thought that's what I should do because I was in that situation. And it's even that is enough to make you feel trauma, because if your body tightens up, your yoni, and it basically is painful, that's enough to say to you, your yoni is not happy, so you need to say no, for whatever reason. And that's even that, I don't think some people don't even realise that that's what that means. If you get pain in that area, it means actually maybe you should stop.
Yeah.
People think that's what sex feels like, and that's what it's like, because they might not have known anything different. So even just to educate people on that front would be amazing. I mean, there's so much work to do in this area.
Well, yeah. I mean, it could, like you said, if us as women who have young children or beginning to be mothers dealt with our own stuff, then we're able to try and not make too big a thing about even nakedness. Let's start there. Just being naked and not having to blur things out, or like, cover things up or be ashamed of anything. Or if you want to walk around with your hand in the front of your pants, then do that, because a lot of the time you do that and you get your hand slapped and pulled out of there. It's like, and the word
guys, they get a hard time for that, and that's because a lot of people that do that are so in touch with their selves, in a sense. And it's just like because actually, if you touch on anyone that's listening, if you just put your hand on your private parts, your genitals, whether you're a man or a woman, and you feel the warmth of that area, is actually, there's so much energy and so much goodness and creativity and life force in that area, that's why people touch it. That's why people feel drawn to just place their hands on top, because it's a connection, it's a connecting piece, and it feels so special.
And then when you're talking about sex education in school, as it was, which is, this, what was it? I can't remember. I think most of it came from like friends, and we were banana and condoms, or cucumber, and then
tampon in water to show what happens in your period. That's about all I remember. In terms of there was nothing about consent or boundaries, and they're the sort of things that you want to be teaching in schools. What does true consent mean? What is a boundary, and what does meeting a boundary look like, and what does setting a boundary look like? They're the sort of things that if we taught our young generations that, it makes such a difference in their life, just to know that they are able to set a boundary. And
that feeling of sensuality and sexuality without shame as well, without and being free with your body without being called sluttish or inviting any kind of untold, unwanted reaction or action or anything like that. And then the confusion that young guys must have, because they're not getting into contact with themselves and not understanding how to work their bodies, and then not understanding how to approach a woman. It's like some of the language that you hear, and not even young guys, but like older men, the way that they still talk about how they're gonna, one of the phrases that I just really deplore is like, hit it, you know what I mean? It's like, come on now.
Yeah.
You know, is it,
there's a big piece around teaching people, like you say, how to touch, how to communicate, how to touch, how to communicate, how to set boundaries. All of those things you could teach so much just in a one-day workshop or even an hour, you know, about, it's not about grabbing the boobs or doing this. It's not about, you know, it's about actually touching someone, making them feel loved and special. And it's like, oh, actually, you know,
things can be so much different. And you were talking about your family and their reaction to your Facebook posts and so forth like that. How have you been able to communicate in a way that surprised you with any of the older generation who might have had, you know, never had any kind of real sensual experience, and then suddenly have realized they've like had 50 years of really bad sex, and suddenly something's awakening, you know?
Yeah, and do you know what, it's not even just, even I've got a client that comes to see me every month, and he's a guy, and he comes for just a holistic treatment, but he'd never had a treatment before he came to see me, and he has only been seeing me for a year. And he's like, he's nearly 50, he's like, all my life I've been looking for something like this. I've never experienced touch in this way, just to be honoured, and he's like, all these years I've just not had a treatment. I'm like, I know, it's crazy. There's so many people out there who are so scared, and touched, and it might be because of past experience, or just because there's a whole piece around just receiving love. And a lot of people struggle just to receive, like wholeheartedly receive, without any having to give back anything at all. And so for some people that's quite a big thing. And I mean, my family, they're just used to me now, I think. And I'm just like, don't be surprised by the stuff that I post. It's what I do, you know, get used to it, and they're fine. They're used to it now, really. They'll have their comment. That's the thing, though. They'll feed back to me now. And the old Kerry would have been like, I've been crying about it, being like distraught, my whole world's been crashed apart. And now I've have this great kind of saying to myself that I'm not for everyone. And some people will love me and some people won't love me. I noticed today on the post today that someone's hid all my posts. That's anything that my post, they haven't unliked my page, but they've hid my posts. So I don't know what that means. I mean, why don't you just unlike my page? So they're obviously scared to unlike my page in case I see it or something, but they're going to hide all my posts. But I'm like, that's fine. And again, the old Kerry would have been like, oh, I'm so annoyed, I'm so upset. But I'm like, but that means they're not the person I need to be speaking to, and that's fine. No.
The way that the social media is very interesting. Those little algorithms in the back end give you real information as to like who and how people are feeling. It's been interesting. I mean, I notice it even when it comes to things like posting like just podcast snippets online, and the difference it will make, and like certain people just know me for that, and then like an old kind of group of friends or anything like that will barely like it. It's only if I put something like kind of like really generic, which I tend not to now as well. I just kind of keep it generic. You know, it's that someone will like something, of the odd occasion that I'll put something to do with Cardi B up, but at the moment I'm staying. I've not done anything for a couple of days, just because I've been, you know, I'll kind of flip a story or something like that, but anything other than that, I've just been really focused on like planning how I'm going to really take about it. And what was interesting was when social media goes down, I don't know
last week you couldn't upload any pictures. Everyone was like, oh my god, pictures. But I mean, we all noticed it, because I noticed it on my WhatsApp, and I thought, what's going on? There's no pictures coming through. Like it's like the whole world noticed.
And I didn't think about that. I didn't even realize that it had gone down, because I was walking from somewhere where I'd been connected to the Wi-Fi, and then I was kind of going into data, and I could see certain things weren't loaded. And occasionally when you're in between the two, it plays around a bit. So it wasn't really a big thing. And then I tried to do something later, and like some pictures were coming up and some weren't. And I'm like, okay. And then and then I was trying to send some things via WhatsApp, and then I kind of did a quick Google search, and it was an outage. I'm like, oh my god, the influencers will be like jumping off the edge now.
Oh no, but I use voice notes. I always use voice notes quite a lot, and but they wouldn't work. But I could type a message and that would work. But that just takes so much longer because I'm used to doing a little voice note. So I was like typing messages. And I was like, oh, now I realise how much I love my voice notes.
Where would we be? I know. It went down again. It's so good. There was another question that I wanted to ask as well, and just coming like right back to media and how it's affecting people in their own circle and bringing up their own memories. If you had any kind of advice or tips for anyone who might be watching either someone being taken to court or someone coming out and sharing their story, and out of nowhere then they start to think perhaps it's happened to them, and they're starting to get some sort of recollection or some sort of feeling where it feels kind of familiar, what advice or how would you say for them to approach this? In, you know, you've got experience of trauma therapy. Would you say start looking at it on an energetic level, start to go down to like take these people to court, get them locked up, get compensation? How do you feel they can best handle this kind of uncertainty, but yet there's a part of them going, there's something there that I'm recognizing here?
I think initially the first and foremost, they need to just sit with it and to really understand what's going on in their energy and what is coming up. And how they do that is just by taking the time to connect to what's going on. So rather than trying to suppress it and trying to think, I can't deal with this right now, I've got too much going on, or actually it's coming up for a reason, to spend the time just to sit with it and be with it, and then journal on it, like literally write about what's coming up, because the more you connect to it and the more you kind of just understand it, you're able to write about it, and then it will come up and it will kind of process through. But if you don't spend that time, then it'll just keep on staying at a certain level and it'll never actually come out and be expressed in some way, because a lot of the time that's what it starts off being so confusing at first, because you just keep getting like little like memory flashbacks and none of it makes sense, and so you have to kind of be with it in order for it to kind of start to unfold, really. And then I think at that point, then you're able to then take action on it if you want to take action, or it might just be you want to just let it go and release it in some way.
And have you got any tips or best way that you think about releasing it, whether it's coming to a workshop and treatment from you, or any other exercises or methods that they can use?
Yeah, I mean, from the energy alignment method that I use, that's it's quite accessible online, but obviously I do coaching sessions in that just to release energy. But ultimately you can do things like exercise. I mean, even things as simple as exercise and meditation and connecting to nature helps you let it ground it and let it settle, rather than it be all kind of hysteria and this is going on and all this is coming back and I don't know what to do with it. Just ground yourself and ground the energy of it, and then it may just go like that. Some of the things that have come up for me, they have just literally passed through, and then some other things have not, and they've had to have more work, more processing. And obviously if it's of a sexual nature, then a tantric practitioner, look into that and don't kind of move beyond what you think tantra means, because it's honestly the most amazing healing modality I've ever come across in terms of embodiment stuff. And it takes you away from your head and it just deals with actually your body and what's your body telling you. I've got the most amazing book that I use for a lot of my energy work, and it's called The Body's Talking, Are You Listening? And you really do need to stop and listen to your body and what's happening in it, and it will tell you everything you need to know if you take the time to listen.
It's rebuilding that connection. How And just to kind of tie in, how would you define and or explain Tantra to someone who's like, okay, I've heard this thing that Sting said, but maybe it's not that. What is Tantra? How could you easily just go, this is what it is, this is what it can do?
It's one of those things, and like my Tantra teacher, she's had years and years and years of training. She's been over to India and studied the Tantras, which are like books all about this kind of the years and years ago when it first started in India.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, Tantra to me, in terms of my experience, means it's about love, it's about connection, it's about you connecting to your inner essence, and about you connecting to source and raising your vibration through moving energy throughout your body. And it does obviously include sexual energy, but it's about you using that energy to empower you and to raise you up and to stand in your power. It's not about sex. It's about energy, connection, love, and that can be to you on completely on your own, or it can be with another human being. But even just looking at someone through the eyes, that's the most common tantric practice that I've used throughout all of my training and everything, is just pure eye contact with someone, connecting soul to soul, so you can truly be seen. And that is, to me, is the essence of what I've learned on my journey. And every person that works in the tantra field will have a different answer, but for me, that's what it's meant to me. And that's the kind of work that I'm putting out there in the world, is all around just general connection to self. And then once you deepen that connection, you learn to love the inner essence of you, how you can then connect to another human being or another being, And that's also just life itself, into the universe, into the planet. It's all about just that pure connection and almost you being at one with the world, because you're so full of love. Everywhere just feels like one energy. Does that make sense?
Loads of sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Definitely. And one thing I've really come into to really appreciate is how important that connection is. As I've been through a period of time where I've just been like really just doing the practice, and just kind of taking it for granted that I was doing the practice and noticing changes and anything like that. And then my circumstances have changed and put me in a situation where for a little time I wasn't getting into I was losing the practice. And then it fell away for a little bit, and then suddenly it was like, oh my god, it's like I can't be without this. And my yoga teacher, she was saying like the most painful position to be in is to know what to do and not do it.
Yeah.
That's the most painful part of it, because either you don't know, so you're blissfully unaware, either you do know and you're doing it all the time and you're cool, or you know what you should be doing, you're sitting in the middle just like not doing it and just in absolute agony.
And that's the thing that I always say to that all the people I've trained with in the two modalities I've mentioned today, is that you've got the option. Like, I know how to help myself, and I know how, even last week I was in a proper funk last week, and I knew that there was loads going on with the planets and all this stuff going on, and I knew the work I had to do, but there was one particular day I didn't want to do it, but I acknowledged that. I said, I don't want to do it today. Like, my head is full. I don't want to do it today. I'm tired and I'm just not ready. I just want to sit with it, actually. And then the next day I did the work, and then I went back to being okay again. But it kind of, and that's where the awareness is key, because it's like, I know what I need to do, but it's whether I choose to or not. And then if you don't, then you have to accept that you're going to sit with it then.
Yeah. Suffer the consequences. But at least there's an awareness of like, why am I feeling so bad? It's like, because you just get out of bed and do any practice, really. That's why you feel so bad. And then when you do, because like at the beginning, it being kind of like in and out. And then last week when there was so much going on, I'm like, okay, we're in and we're holding on right now, because there's a lot. This month is big, and then also I'm going to be like doing like major amounts of Kundalini next week. So you know, I'm going to really appreciate it even more, because I've been, you know, just getting that taste and that reconnection when for some reason you went away from it. You know, it's like, why would I?
I know. That's the thing, is that life without this stuff, without the things that you do, it's just, it's not your life anymore, is it? Choose not to do it, you're just kind of in this bubble of like defiance, because you actually know what's best.
Yeah. let's keep in it now. I can't, or like you say, you're ignorant and you don't know why things are happening, but at least you just kind of, you know, you can blame the entire world for it. So to take it on yourself.
But even when you don't know what to do, like journaling, that's why journaling's so amazing. Just write about how you're feeling is probably is enough to be able to kind of acknowledge it. You just got to acknowledge it, and then it can move, you know. And a lot of people just think like there's some sort of art to journaling. It's like, no, just write whatever comes, you know.
Yeah. Brilliant. So let me ask you the Her Conversation podcast questions. Okay. So the first one is, what is the best piece of advice a woman has ever given to you?
I thought about this, and I was thinking, there's so many things advice that people have given me in my life, and I was thinking, what's that one piece, the best piece? I was thinking, I don't know. Let me just think what would come to me now. But do you know what? I think it's about just being myself, and actually, vulnerability is power. You know, like that kind of, when I've been told, like, just be yourself. And when you're vulnerable, when you're open, that's when people really do connect to you. Because for so many years of my life, I ran around trying to be Superwoman all the time, and that nothing fazed me. And I don't remember who told me that. It probably the answer to the next question. But but I just remember when I finally realised that actually vulnerability isn't weakness. And I think I've got that from various different people, but that was probably one of the major things that has transformed myself in terms of just me embracing that side of myself, which I ignored and hated for so long.
Have you watched the Brené Brown thing?
Yeah, that's you're going to say what woman you said about
the, is that who it is? Okay, what woman represents higher energetic resonance to you then?
Brené Brown. She's my answer to this one, and the reason why is because, like, I remember the first time I watched one of her things on YouTube, and I was like, and I listened to The Power of Vulnerability. I was like, oh my goodness, this is like the thing I've been looking for all my life. Just someone who's actually going to just speak the truth, and the fact that she goes through it and the way she talks about it in such a lovely way that now enables people just to go, yeah, that's me. I'm the person that walks around being really pissed off when the kids' school have asked for cookies and I don't want to do them, but I'm just going to say, yeah, that's fine. And then it's like, but they'd just be really annoyed. And just the way she just talks so openly about shame and guilt, and the way, you know, just about just being a woman in even in her power, the way she is now. I've got total respect for that woman, and she's changed my life as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my let me see which one. I've got a couple of hers on Audible. I'm trying to remember which ones I have.
She's so funny on Audible, isn't she?
Yeah.
I just crack up laughing at her.
The Power of Vulnerability. I have that one. I feel like
to it.
Yeah, that one's done. And then I've watched a few. I've still not watched the YouTube ones.
No,
not the YouTube. I've still not watched the Netflix one. I keep meaning
nor have I.
But and also recently she did a podcast with Russell Brand. That's a really good one as well, because like he's one of my favorite people as well. So like imagine those two together, it's so good. It's
both just saying how it is.
I think it's about 2 hours long, but it's like quality stuff, you know, so I highly recommend. So
I'm definitely gonna look that one up as well.
And it's on YouTube, that one, because it's kind of gone onto a different platform, so you can't hear his stuff unless you sign up to it. So it was
Yeah.
very nice of him to put that particular episode there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And next question is, what's your favourite self-care ritual or practice?
The first thing that I thought, self-pleasuring, actually, because it's something that I never did like my whole life, and it was something that's so new to me, and to the point where I even had to sign up to a kind of portal to show me how to do it, because I had never done it. It's a portal called OMG Yes, and it teaches you how to
Oh,
basically.
I've heard of
I
that.
love
Yeah.
that word, how to self pleasure. Yeah, and now, like, it's kind of part of my daily practice now. And it's not necessarily to reach an orgasm or do it. It's just basically just to give myself some self care in that sense, just to feel my skin, or to put a lovely body lotion on, or a nice salt scrub in the shower, just something to connect to my body. And that's something that I do every day in some way, shape, or form. And it is, it's my favourite thing, because it's just giving love to yourself, isn't it? And only you can give that in the way that you know best.
That's cool. Do you follow Kim Anami at all?
No.
She's her work is very much about sexuality and sensuality, and she what does she call herself? She's been around for a while, and her thing is she meditates, she masturbates, and she creates. But she's also like a vaginal weightlifter, so there'll be pictures of her standing there like holding like a few kilograms, you know. But again, she's very much one about like the power of pussy, and using that energy to manifest stuff, you know, and just
because every time I have a morning where I've kind of connected to my pussy, in effect, the day is just on another level.
Have you noticed like it's kind of like up to your manifesting power?
Oh yeah, and but just also just connecting to me, my true me. Like when I want to write content and stuff like that on days that I'm writing content, they're absolutely the days that I spend lots more time with self pleasure, because I know that I'm then in my highest vibration and I'm just flying.
Got it.
You know.
Totally good. Cool. So that's it, done. Really. So what's coming up next for you?
I'm in the midst of I'm kind of working on a couple of collaborations with some other beautiful beings, just to kind of do some events, because I've never really done events. I've done lots of events where I've kind of spoke at, but I want to do my own events now. So I'm looking to run some sort of love, relationship, and sex events, just to help people all around that area.
Wow.
And I'm trying to decide at the moment where I'm going to do them. So I kind of want to do them around up and down the country, because I've got so many people that follow me like up north and stuff like that, and I kind of want to reach those as well. And I'm looking at kind of day retreats and things like that. And I've been asked to speak at a couple of other retreats, and just lots and lots of things like that happening in the pipeline, which is really exciting. And I've also got my couples program that I launched a couple of weeks ago, so that's sort of ongoing, and that's like a combination of Tantra and the energy work and how to kind of connect as a couple. But on the back of all of that, I've also just about to relaunch really my individual program, because a lot of the couples that are kind of half interested, they're not both interested yet, and they kind of need to do the work on themselves first. So I'm in the midst of just kind of going to be launching that in the next couple of months. So lots of content, lots of kind of getting my blogs out there, and I'm writing my book as well. So I'm just loving life. I just want to keep writing. I've got so much that I want to share.
Good.
And I want to get a book out there, because then people can really absorb your content then. And learn how to sort of set themselves free. And that's ultimately what I want: how to connect to someone, how to connect to themselves, and how they can set themselves free from anything that's not serving them. So
good for you. And where can people find you online? What are your addresses, social media handles, and so forth?
So on Facebook, I'm Holistic Kerry, so HOLISTIC Kerry. Kerry O'Sullivan, my personal profile, and holistickerry.co.uk is my website. And yeah, LinkedIn, I'm Kerry O'Sullivan as well. I'm not on Instagram for business yet, but that's something else I'm going to work on as well. You can PM me on my social media channels or drop me an email.
Perfect. Great stuff. So thank you very much, Kerry. It was so much fun and so great to meet you at another Women's Day event as well. She created her life. Tisha did like an amazing job. It was so much fun, and I was like so in awe of what she pulled together as well, because I know these things are not easy.
A lot of people to organise, yeah,
a lot of people, a lot of space, and she did it, and everyone who came away from it was like, that was so good. And I like talked about it through a few other people. They were like, how did it go? I'm like, it's like one of the best things. I take my hat off to her. And they're like, when's the next one? I'm like, okay. So it's gonna grow for her. So it's good, and like, can't wait to see your things come out as well. So just keep us all posted. Now that we're connected, I can start to see what everyone's doing and building. And there's like what's really exciting, I feel, is like there's such this movement of women that are just kind of creating stuff and finding their little bit of their offering and what they can create. It's like, okay, I went through this and I'm going to turn it into something else. And it's going to be, this is how I'm going to help it. And the women that are like vibe with me are going to kind of be my crew, and we're going to help and create community. And it's like this kind of underground spider web of women who were just kind
powerful
of like
women.
And it's good, and it's exciting. On the same token, it's still so niche, and I think we forget sometimes when we're in
a bubble. So everyone does the same stuff, and Facebook feeds, because everyone you follow is doing the same thing, and you kind of think, but they're just like the people that you kind of see all the time, so that's why they're always there. But it's not. And
it feels like the whole world, and it like is still we're still such a minority, but the scales are tipping. We're doing it.
We are. I know, it's amazing. I love all the energy vibes. It was amazing last weekend, and I still feel quite high from it as well.
Perfect. The best.
Oh, thank you so much for tonight as well. It's been lovely having a chat.
Thanks to you, Kerry, for joining me on this episode of Her Conversations, and thank you for listening. You can discover more about me by visiting my website. It's carolmaywhittick.com. That's carolmaywhittick.com. You can find me on Facebook under that name, and also my Instagram name is Casmic, so that's at Casmic, Cazmick. Also, Her Life Academy is open. It's monthly instruction and inspiration for the awakening woman. It's created for you to magnify your spirituality, your sensuality, and your soul, and live in higher energetic resonance. So for more information about that, go to herlifeacademy.com, and also follow at Her Life Academy on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. I'd also appreciate you leaving a comment, liking, sharing any episodes, and if you subscribe on your preferred platform, you'll be notified as soon as a new episode is published. Again, thank you, and until the next episode, take care.